Hello guys, got a video here for you today on the M3. So in this video what we're going to be doing is installing a plenum plug in the plenum there. So first of all, what is a plenum plug? And all it is a little dowel rim piece that plugs off some of the volume of the plenum. So in an air rifle, the plenum is the store of regulated air that's available to the valve at one time. So for an FAC rifle you need a very large plenum in order to have a large amount of air to push the pellet down the barrel at the required speed. For sub 12, as our muzzle energies are much lower obviously, we need much less air, and having a plenum that's too large can cause additional problems. So when I was experimenting with a Mark II, I experimented around with the plenum size, and in my experiments I found blanking most of it off improved the way the rifle shot. So hopefully that's going to be the same with the M3. But we'll see when we go down the range on the weekend. The smaller plenum made the reg recovery time faster, and it also made shot-to-shot consistency a little better. Obviously it's not some miracle cure, it doesn't make the rifle 10 times better or anything like that, but it's just one of the things that we done on the Mark II and made a little improvement with. So we're going to try doing it on the M3 as well. Right then, to fit the plenum plug it's a bit of a chore. We have to pretty much strip the entire rifle. So I'll bring you along, but obviously I'll speed through most of it, as you can already see the full disassembly on the channel. So first off, I'll take my scope off. That's just with 4mm Allen key. Then we'll take the bottle off, so I'll unscrew the bottle first. With the bottle unscrewed I'll just empty the back regulator. Now that that's emptied, I'll take the barrel out. That's just with a 3mm Allen key in this grub screw here. Next what we'll do, we'll take the top rail off. That's done using a 2.5mm Allen key in the back too, and a 4mm at the front. Next we'll take the cheek piece off, and that's just with 2.5mm Allen key. So next we'll take out the front valve. Now I've already taken the anti-tamper off mine and replaced it with a dowel ring cap, so mine's going to be easy to get out. But if you haven't taken the anti-tamper out, what you can normally do is grip the outside of the valve and twist it loose. They're not normally done up tight from the factory. Then with an 11mm spanner we'll take out the front valve. So with the front valve off, what you can do is pull out the stem, and then I've got a little dowel ring disc here that I use to push behind the C1, and that stops it from going back inside the gun. Then with my C1 removal tool I'll just push it over and do up the little grub screw. Then I'll pull that out, put a little bit of brass over to protect the valve stem, and with some mole grips grip the valve. Then you can just twist the C1 removal tool and unscrew it. And there it is there. With the front valve out, we'll turn our attention to the top rail and we'll take all the top rail off. So with a 2.5mm Allen key. Then with the cocking handle open, we'll lift the rail off. Take the front block off as well because that will be loose, and we'll stick that to one side. Next up we'll take this rear cocking block off, and that's just with a 2.5mm Allen key. And then we can lift off the cocking blocks and the pellet probe assembly. Tip out the hammer and the hammer spring, and then we can undo this screw here. That's with a 4mm Allen key. You only need to loosen it off, you don't need to take it all the way out, and then we'll just separate the two halves. Then finally we can get at the plenum. That's just screwed on, and then the valve stem can just be pushed out the back. There that is, and there's our plenum. So the plenum plug's real easy to fit, it just drops in the hole. I do like to put a little O-ring on top of the plug so that it stops it rattling around when it's installed in the gun. So before we put the valve stem in, I do like to just add a small amount of silicone grease to this leading edge here. There is a small O-ring behind this nut, so when you push this through it has to find its way through that small O-ring. Then we'll just put a small amount of silicone grease around this back O-ring, and the same with this O-ring here. Right then, now we can just screw the plenum back in. So with the plenum plug back in, we can rebuild the gun. Now, as I said before, the plenum plug just takes up volume in the plenum. There is additional volume in here that could be taken up if we needed to, but I've found just blanking off this section here is sufficient enough. Obviously you're not removing all the volume of the plenum, as there is a hole through the middle, and there's also various drillings in the block and such. Right then, let's put it back together. We'll start bringing the block back and joining the two halves. Do this screw up loosely for now, and we'll tighten it up once the rifle's fully built back up together. So next we'll put back the hammer and the hammer spring, and that just goes in the front there. Just shove it to the back. Before anything else goes in, what we'll do is we'll reinstall the front valve. It's just easier while everything's out the way. So we'll just pull on the little pip at the end there, pull it out, put our little piece of brass around the valve rod, and then grip it. With the mole grips. Now once we've got the valve rod gripped and we've got the little dowel ring space up in the end there, it's time to reinstall the C1. So with the C1, still in the C1 removal tool, we'll just reinstall it on the front of the rifle. For sub 12 models, I just screw the C1 all the way on. For FAC models, there is a set distance that you're supposed to leave these off, and that set distance is marked on the tool there. So that's tight, so I'm going to release the mole grips, remove the little brass spacer, and just put the little dowel rim one back. Rotate the tool to expose the grub screw, and then undo it like so. So if this were an FAC rifle, what you'd have to do is keep taking the tool off and having a look, making sure the end of the valve corresponds with this little gap here. What that would do is correctly set the set depth for the C1 so that you can properly use your adjustable valve. But since I don't use the adjustable valve, I just screw them all the way in. Right, next we'll put the cap back, and that just screws in like so. And then we can just use an 11mm spanner to nip it up. And then we'll just reinstall the cap. Now before the cock and block assemblies went on, I did just grease this area with a small amount of lithium grease, just to keep everything nice and sliding. So another thing to watch out for with the cock and blocks is that these little dowel ring pucks here can fall out. So just keep an eye on them when you reinstall cock and blocks, and then once we're happy we'll lightly do up this screw here. That's with a 2.5mm Allen key. Next what we're going to do is put the barrel back in. So we'll just add a small amount of silicone grease to these O-rings here and to the front of the barrel here. The grease on the end of the barrel is just to help it push through the two bearing blocks, and I've found it's easiest to put this one on first. So we'll slide that up and then slide the barrel through. And what that will do is just align this block here with the axis of the barrel so it can't move around or twist on us. So then we'll just go ahead and do this up. That again is with a 2.5mm Allen key. Right then, next up is to put the top rail on. Now I've already laid it on there, done the screws up so that they're touching. Now I'm just going to come through with a torque wrench and just do the screws up so that they're nice and even. I've chosen 14" pounds on my torque wrench. I'm just going to go through and tighten them up to that. That's that done. So all the bolts on there are nice and torqued up. They should be nice and tight, and there shouldn't be too much bow in the top rail. You don't need a torque wrench to do it up, but I like to do mine up with a torque wrench. Right, next we're just going to tighten the grub screw that holds up the barrel in. That's with a 3mm Allen key. Then we'll put the scope rail on. So we'll do the back ones up with a 2.5mm Allen key. And again, I'll do these up with my torque wrench. Get them so that they touch. Do the front one up. Again, so it touches. And then feel the gap either side of the scope rail. Wants to be nice and central and not all skewed to one side. It is easy to get the scope rail misaligned, so just take your time, feel the gap and then tighten down when you're happy. And then lastly we'll just quickly stick the cheek piece on. And that's again with a 2.5mm Allen key. And then the very final thing we need to tighten up is this screw here. So that's with a 4mm Allen key. And I like to use an L-wrench Allen key. And just nip it up. Doesn't need to be real tight. It pinches the block at the back there around some O-rings. It needs to be tight enough to pinch, but not so tight as it deforms the aluminium. Right then, that's the rifle fully built back up again, so it's ready to re-gas and test the Plenum plug. So I'll stick the bottle on. Right then, that's the rifle all pressurised back up again. We're at the same regulator set point, so we don't need to adjust the reg, and the front regulator is still set at 100 bar. So I'll just show you the recovery time on the front reg. For reference, and then this is the back rig. So it's pretty much instantly back to 51, and then a couple seconds later it rises that last half a bar of pressure. So I'd say that's working pretty well. What I'll do now is put the rifle over the chrono, do a few shots and see what the extreme spread's like with the Plenum plug installed. So I put a few magazines over the chronograph and I thought I'd share with you with the results of the Plenum plug. So I did 3 15-shot shot strings over the chronograph without the Plenum plug, then did another 3 with the Plenum plug. So the 3 15s without the Plenum plug, one was a 10 spread, one was a 15 spread, and the third one was a 14 spread. So really not that bad over 15 shots without the Plenum plug. However, things did improve slightly with the Plenum plug in. On the 3 shot strings, one was a 9, one was a 10, and the third one, which I was a bit lucky with I think, was a 6 spread. So over 15 shots I'm really quite happy with that. So what's next with the M3? Well, we're going to take it down the range on Saturday and we're going to see if the Plenum plug has made any improvements. Hopefully it will, with the accuracy as well as the consistency, but there's only one way to tell, and that's down the range. But that'll be coming at the weekend. So that's it for now guys. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.